A mother is a son's first true love. A son, especially that first son, is a mother's last true love. I'm getting choked up. Sorry.
Streetz podcast, Voices of the Underworld, and I'm your host and executive producer, Brandon Greene. Today, we have a proud Akron native, a 1978 graduate of St. Vincent St. Mary High School. She attended the University of Akron as well as the Academy of Court Reporting. She's always wanted to help people, and in 1994, started fostering young boys because she felt like young people should have the experience of having a childhood. She's also a state employee that included positions with Summit DD for 23 years and now with Child Support Enforcement Agency, where she'll retire in April of 2025. She's a mom to many, a proud grandmother, and a woman like no other. My mom, the queen, Miss Rosalyn Greene.
Good evening, Brandon.
Hey, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay, I'm all right. I'm happy to be here with you, and we definitely can appreciate you taking your time out for us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here also. I'm happy to see you where you're at, and I'm proud of you as well, Brandon.
Okay, well, here we go. Well, first things first, we do an icebreaker, and it's a new segment, and it's called Who Said It? We'll give you a phrase, and you have to guess who said it. Your options are politician, rapper, preacher, gangster, could be headline news, as well as TV or film. So your quote for the day is, who do I trust? Me. Who said that?
Malcolm?
No, it's not Malcolm. I'll give you a hint. It is a movie. If you want to try to guess that.
No, I can't guess it. Go on and reveal who you're talking about, where the statement came from.
Okay. Well, the answer is it comes from the movie Scarface, 1983.
Oh, okay. Al Pacino.
Okay. Yep, Al Pacino. Yep, you got that right. Okay. Well, so the first things first, we gave the audience a little background. But who was Rosalyn Greene in your own words? Where did you grow up, and what was your childhood like?
Well, Rosalyn Greene is a black female born in Akron, Ohio, to two wonderful people that have passed on, Chester and Marie Greene. I grew up on the south side of Akron in what many would call the hood, but basically the definition of hood in Webster's is where people strive to make ends meet. It doesn't necessarily have to have a negative connotation, like a lot of people may feel that it does. It doesn't. I was from a middle class family. My father worked at B.F. Goodrich. My mother, she pressed shirts in a laundry. But there was 5 of us, and they worked together, And we all worked together as a family unit. Unfortunately, the parents divorced when I was in the third grade, which was, bittersweet, but we continued to be a family to the degree that we could. They were separated, but each parent did their part in terms of raising the five of us. And
Okay, so
so,
having
go ahead.
oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry. You go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah. So I'm,
Okay,
I'm
so
just saying,
having
as
that.
a family, we were a family unit, and even when the split came, we continued to be a family to the degree that we could. Our parents were wanted to educate us, so by my brothers being athletes, they were able to get scholarships to go to private schools, and my sister and I, we followed them in their footsteps.
Okay, so you have four other siblings, three brothers and a sister, correct?
Yeah, I had three brothers and
Yep.
a sister. I have, at this point, I only have one brother that's living, and the other two are deceased. My oldest brother, Ron Greene, and my sister, Roberta Greene, and Roland Greene are now deceased.
Okay, so growing up, with the majority of the boys in the household, how did that shape you in some ways as you got older?
Well, the boys, they ran the household. They were athletes, football athletes, and they ran the household. They had all the privileges. On Saturday mornings when typical kids would get up and watch cartoons, we had to watch the replays from the football games that took place in the week. And so I know nothing about cartoons because we watched football on Saturday mornings, and the boys ruled. We did things like clean and and the womanly duties or female duties of the house. But the boys actually ruled the house and had the privileges.
Okay, so well, early on, you grew to love sports, and how did it happen that you attended St. Vincent St. Mary High School?
Well, my older brothers went to St. V. My oldest brother, Ron Greene, graduated from St. V in 1968. And he went there 3 years of his high school. And we as kids we looked up to him because he was 9 years older than I, and so we looked up to him as our big brother, and we wanted to do the things that our big brother did. And then Roland came along, some years later, 7 years later, and he attended St. V, St. M, and Raymond. And then, of course, I wanted to do what my brothers did, so we were able to attend St. Vincent. My sister and I, we were raised Catholic also, and into CYO, the Catholic Youth Organization, where we played youth sports, and it just, carried us on into our high school years at St. Vincent St. Mary.
And like you mentioned earlier, you grew up on the south side, and the inner city. It could be called as the hood to some. But how was that experience of going to St. V, versus where you grew up at?
Well, at the time I didn't think anything about that, but in retrospect, we went to school over at St. V, which was close to downtown Akron, and we mingled with the kids that we went to school with. We went to school, it's I mean, it was obvious, it was a predominantly white school, so, as a black female, and black males, we mingled with the white people. But when at the end of the school day, we came back to our neighborhood where we lived, and they went to the suburbs. And so you asked me, how was it? At the time, I didn't know anything. I didn't know this, but in retrospect, I mean, it was a great experience because it taught me how to deal with everybody, with persons, with Caucasians, and if you don't know how to deal with them, it's going to be difficult for you to make it through this life. And so the biggest thing I got out of that was learning to move through this thing called life and being able to deal with, all different people.
Okay. Could you tell us from each parent what was two values that you still take with you to this day that from each parent, your mom and your dad, that they taught you?
Well, my mom, I watched her and I learned from her a work ethic. and, and in addition to the work ethic, I learned how to take care of children because she loved us as children. She loved her family and she took care of us. And there's nothing that she wouldn't do to take care of us. Sometimes she didn't have a vehicle. She would walk to work and walk home from work. So, looking at that, they gave me the work ethic that I have today. I work. I've always worked 2, 3 jobs, um, to be able to maintain. My dad always told me that I was just as good as that white girl that sat next to me. I just had to apply myself. He said, "Don't ever let anybody tell you that somebody is smarter than you or somebody is better than you because they aren't. You're just as good as that person sitting next to you." And so with that instilled in my head, that gave me the fortitude to be able to want to continue to strive to move forward.
Okay, that was definitely well said. And so let's fast forward. Graduating high school. Where did life go from you? After that.
Well, when I graduated from high school, I went to college for a couple years, and then I decided I was going to move to California. Um, and that's when I met your dad, and I was out there for a year. But I had known him before I went out there, but I became pregnant with you and I had you. And at that point I had to grow up because I had a little baby that I was responsible for. And that event in my life, that made me grow up. But that's also when life really started, when you know that it's not about me, it's about me providing for you, making sure that you had all the necessities of life, a roof over your head, clothes to wear, food to eat, that you went to school, and deal with, the issues that you presented to me from a baby to a, to a toddler, to a young man, to an adult. And just to sum it up, that's when life started. That's when I was challenged to be a productive adult.
Hey, well, what type of guy was he?
What type of guy was your dad? He was,
Yeah.
coming from St. V. I had been sheltered. I was sheltered. I didn't know a lot about being out and about. I was in California. It was something new. He showed me the lights and the fun part of life, the partying. And so because I had never experienced that, that was exciting to me. But he was very exciting. He loved his kids. He loved you as a son. He loved you, but he and I, we could just never make it. And so I had to separate, and I came back to Ohio because this is where my support was, my family, and this is where I could get the support I needed and continue to care for you at the same time.
Okay, so would it be fair to say that he was a street guy?
Well, yeah, he worked, but he also hustled on the side. He took care of me while I was there. And you, and even when you came back here, there was nothing that I couldn't call and get from him, as far as you and taking care of you. But yes, he was a street guy. He gambled. His job was he did construction work. He was what they call a hod carrier, where he supplied, the plasters, the mud they needed to stucco houses out in California. He was a laborer, but his position was actually a hod carrier. And, in the streets, he gambled and probably a few other things, but I wasn't out there. I wasn't out there, but I would imagine he probably did a few other things as well.
Okay, so what for our young listeners, what is the allure to for women that attracts them to street guys?
Well, like I said, Brandon, I was really sheltered, and so when we went out, he showed me the lights that I had never seen going out in California and Oakland and San Francisco, Berkeley, California. He showed me a side of life that I had never seen, that I didn't even know existed. And so that's what caught my attention at that time. Of course, because I got pregnant and you were a result of that, I had to grow up. That no longer was important to me. I could do that while I was single, but when I had you, that just wasn't appropriate.
Okay, so coming now, you done had me, things didn't work out there, and you came back to Akron. What was that experience like initially?
Well, I mean, I didn't
You
want to
have
come back to
1 minute remaining.
I didn't want to come back to Akron. I felt like that I had failed. I was a failure to a degree, but I got back here and I had the love of a family that accepted me. With you being a single mom, I had the support I needed, somebody that would watch you when I tried to work, when I was going to school. It was safe here for you. I didn't have to worry about you, when I'm working, wondering if you're safe, if the babysitter is taking care of you. I didn't have all those worries.
Okay, this is them Streetz podcast, Voices of the Underworld, and we'll be back momentarily with Miss Rosalyn Greene.
Thank you for using GTL. DRC Correctional Facility and is subject to monitoring and recording. Utilization of an unapproved application and three-way calls to communicate are strictly prohibited and a violation of DRC policy. Thank you for using GTL. GTL.
This is them Streetz podcast, Voices of the Underworld, and we're back with Miss Rosalyn Greene. So before, we went to break, you were speaking about how you came back and how, you felt down in a lot of ways, but you had the support, of a family, who accepted you and, they would help you, to go on to the next point in your life. So how was it, being a single mother, with raising me?
Well, Brandon, all I can say is, in retrospect, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy, but I only had you, and that made it easier. I didn't have, two or three kids that I had to support. I had the one, but I also had to work. And again, it made it easier knowing that I had somebody that could watch you while I worked, while I went to school, to prepare myself to be able to navigate this life so that you could have, a decent life, as far as school is concerned, and me being able to provide the things you needed as a young boy, and then as a young adult, and then on into manhood. So was it
Right.
easy? No, it wasn't easy. And then we know, you went to school, sports, basketball is what got your attention. For you started off in football, you did a little bit of both, but basketball was what you loved, and you shined in basketball. But then, after basketball was over and you went on to college, you didn't stay in college and you came back and, you had an idle mind. And I was always told that an idle mind is a devil's playground. And so you made some choices that I wasn't pleased with, that were hurting, but you were still my son. And I was always going to be your mother, as I am now. I'm always going to be your mother. And so as a mother, in spite of what your children get into, you still love them. You're still there to support them. And that's what I've done, and that's what I continue to do.
All right, so, I know it was when you talk about how I began to excel in basketball, that was a beautiful time in both our lives, because I remember being younger and coming up, getting in trouble in school. But as you said, when sports came about, it kind of got my attention because I knew in order to play, I had to be in school. I couldn't get suspended. And, it's a lot of things that you said that I wish maybe would have resonated, not maybe, but I wish would have resonated back then, that when I think about it today, I say, man, she was right. She said this, but, you said left, but I was right. And I think a lot of whether this generation or before, a lot of times we say, man, I wish I would have listened to, what my mom said or my dad said, if you had that. What was the toughest part for you, when I started getting in trouble?
Just seeing you go through that criminal justice system, and you were very young, you knew nothing about it. You still had childish ways. You still asked juvenile questions. Like, I was going to come and see you one time down in Summit County, And you said to me, well, I think you can come at any time. I think they let moms come at any time. So that to me showed me that, you still you were a man, but you really didn't understand what you had gotten yourself into, the extent, the seriousness of what you were facing. Because it doesn't matter that I was your mom, I still had to abide by the rules.
Right. So
So
true.
just seeing you, in that criminal justice system and having to go through all the things you went through and seeing you being sentenced the first time and then, for the number of years that you had been sentenced, that was hurting for me. I had to really, I looked at myself and I wondered, where did I go wrong? Did I do anything wrong? And what was it that I did wrong? I thought I had been, I was going to be the mother that my mother wasn't to me. And my mother was an excellent, great mother. But I don't think I ever, through your entire high school career, I don't think I ever missed a game. I was always there. I came up to the school if I had to come to the school, which I didn't have to come to the school because you were playing ball and you behaved. You were popular. You were liked not just for your basketball, but also for your personality. From what I could see, everybody said, "Oh, BG, that's a good guy. That's a good guy." I just recently ran into a young lady that knew you from Summit Lake, from the Summit Lake area. She knew you and James Bethune, and she said, "Oh, those are good guys. BG, he was a good guy." So, I was proud, but when you started to, go to the left, yeah, that was hurtful, and I had to put that in perspective. I had to learn how to deal with that and not necessarily blame myself. And in trying to do that, I ended up taking this grief and loss course down here at a church called the House of the Lord. It was called Grief Recovery, and they deal with losses throughout your life and losing you to being out here and being behind bars. That was a loss. And so I had to learn to deal with that. I had to accept it for what it was and keep moving because, like, whatever we do, life keeps moving. I can sit here and talk to you now. And when this podcast is over, life continues to go on. It does not stop. Even you being on the inside, life continues to move. It doesn't stop. And so when we can deal with what life presents us and continue to move forward in a positive way, that's something that someone can pat themselves on their back for. And that's what I've done.
Right. What would you, tell a young mom listening? Has a son that's falling off track, single mom. What would you tell her if she asked you, like, what's going on? I know you done been through this. What would you say to her?
I would tell her to use all the tools that she has available to her, all the services out here, but most of all, get on your knees and pray. Take your kids to church. Be an example for them. Because when they put it all together, those are the things they're going to remember. They're going to remember that you were there for me, that you went to work every day, that you made sure we ate every day. We went to school with clean clothes on. Continue to be a mother through all of that. But pray. Pray for yourself. Pray for your children. Ask God to cover you all. When they walk out that door, cover my son, cover my daughter, cover my children. That I was raised with strong religious beliefs. I was raised with a mother and father that had morals, that had values, that, anything just didn't go. And you had to listen to what I was told to do. But it doesn't start when they get to be 5, 6, 7. It starts from when they are infants, and you set the standard for them. Like I've told you in the past, as a parent, we get one shot at it. We get one shot, and we may say 18 years is a long time, but 18 years is not a long time. So you do the best you can with what you have, and hopefully, the decisions you've made have been positive. Your kids, once they get out, up and out, and from around you. They present positive behavior. They're respectful. That's all a parent can ask, and that's all I would tell these young girls. You know, you are the model for your children. It starts right in your home. So if you got a dysfunctional home, if you got people running in and out of your home, you sleeping with multiple men, stop it. Because this is what kids are going to remember. This is the behavior you're modeling is what they are going to do. So make the home base the most positive. Make them, when they look back on their childhood, say, you know what, I had a pleasant childhood. And that's what I believe all kids should be able to look back and say, I had a good childhood. Even though my mom, she was a single mom, you know, she made it happen for us. She took care of me. She took good care of me. Those are the things that matter.
And speaking of, pleasant, use the word pleasant, you think all kids should have that. Let's get into the, in your bio, what made you want to get into fostering?
Because I only had the one child. I had a house that was big enough to foster, and I like kids. I love kids. You know, I still like working with the youth because they have the whole world at their fingertips, and they're so naive, 16, 17, 18-year-olds. They're so naive, and, for whatever time I'm with them, I'm going to try to, put something positive in their heads.
Okay, and what's some of the most rewarding things, like, since these kids, they grown men, I know a lot of them come back and see you to this day. What's one of the most rewarding things that you could say?
Is when they do come back, and when they do come back to the house, and they say, Miss Greene, you treated us well, and we appreciate you. I treated all the boys the same way I treated you. They all looked up to you as their big brother. But, I just like for them to come home. A lot of foster parents, take that, what's his name, Antoine Fisher? Look at the experiences he had in foster care. His foster mother, she wasn't the nicest person. She abused him. And I don't ever want a kid to say, you know what, I stayed in her house and she was very abusive. I don't have that with the boys that I had in my house because I treated them, first of all, as human beings. And I treated them as if I were their biological parents. And I wanted them to experience, coming from a positive upbringing. And that's all you basically can ask.
Right. Well, I want to, backtrack, to when, I was coming up, and basically the topic that I really want to hit on is, public assistance. I know it's a lot of the young women, they get help, they have the subsidized housing, and, what's your thought on that?
Well, Brandon, we lived in subsidized housing, but when you came in our house, you never thought it was subsidized. Subsidized housing is just, it gives a mother, a father, a family, it gives them assistance with, it's a rent subsidy. And so they pay the part that you can't pay. They take 30% of what you make, and that's what you owe on your rent, and the government pays the rest. And there's nothing wrong with that to get on your feet, but don't make that a lifetime career. I was on public assistance. I was in subsidized housing, but I knew that wasn't the end because I wanted more than that. I wanted to be able to live more than just the first 3 or 4 days of the month where I could pay my rent and I could put, a nice meal on the table, and then maybe the last few days of the month I got to, struggle to make sure you had to eat. That's not what I wanted. So I put myself in a position to where I didn't have to do that. I went to school. I educated myself. I learned a skill that, where I could make the money I needed to live the lifestyle I wanted. And I continue to do that. And it can be done. It's difficult because this system is meant to get you in it And it's difficult to get out of it once you're in this system and you need assistance. It's difficult to get. You got to have the mindset. You have to have the wherewithal to want out of this system when you're on public assistance. Because now, women, they're in public assistance. The first time they get a job, their rent gonna go up. They're gonna lose their food stamps. But you gotta understand that sometimes, you have
You
to
have
sacrifice.
1 minute remaining.
You can't wear the latest fashions. You can't wear the name brand fashions. You make sure your kids are dressed properly and you are dressed for the occasion to go to work, and eventually it gets better. You just gotta be motivated to make it. That's all I can say for that to these young girls.
Well, this is the Streetz podcast, Voices of the Underworld, and we'll be back momentarily with Miss Rosalyn Greene.
Utilization of an unapproved application and three-way calls to communicate are strictly prohibited and a violation of DRC policy. Thank you for using GTL. Thanks. Now.
This is the Streetz podcast, Voices of the Underworld, and we're back with Miss Rosalyn Greene. So you closed on your answer, but is it anything else that you would like to say to one of our young listeners, a female, about being in the system, and how she make it out? Any last things you want to say?
Yeah, just continue to strive, to work hard, to look, to want more, to be motivated, to want to know that your situation is not the end. Whatever situation that may be, that's not the end, but it takes you to press to move forward. You got to work toward that. And the way to do that is through education, keep a job, but most of all, you got to take care of your kids because they're the ones that come first at this point in your life. You can't be out in the streets every weekend wanting to party because you got kids. You got to be home with them. You have to be the model for them. You be the mother that you want them to be. And same way with the young males. You all are out here having sex, making babies. Those babies have to grow up, and they need to see positive role models. We talk about we don't have any role models as African Americans, but you, the parents, are the role models. You show the kids, how to behave. You behave in a manner in which you want your kids to be. You be the role model. We don't have to. Yeah, it's nice to look up to, famous figures as role models: Obama, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Edgar Evans, all those black people in history. But when you talk about role models, kids see their parents, they see their aunts, they see their uncles, they see their cousins, the adults. You all have to behave in a way that they would present themselves positive once they're outside of your eyesight.
Okay, and it's getting ready to come to a close, but you've been with the state for almost 30 years, 23 of it with Summit DD, and now you with the Child Support Enforcement Agency. And, for our listeners, for the male and the females, we need a serious, the best tutorial, whatever you call it, to give us the best way to deal with this child support situation.
Well, young men, it takes two to have a baby. And you have to change your mindset about giving women money to take care of your children. Don't look at it as you giving it to her to get her nails done or get her hair done. If she's providing a place for your child, if she has a roof over your child's head, that money is helping her. So you got to change your whole mindset about that. Child support is serious. I talk to the young men that call into child support just as I would my own. And I'm telling them, this is serious. If you got an $80 monthly obligation, shovel some snow, cut some grass until you can get a job and make that monthly obligation. Because at some point, your child is going to grow up. And 18 years may sound like a long time, but while you working and living it, it goes by so quickly. And I'm not saying that the child support system is fair to our brothers, to you young men. It's not fair. but it is what it is. The laws are there, and you got to abide by them. And those are your kids that you're talking about. Not only do you need to pay, you got to spend time with the kids, because the kids aren't going to know anything about the money other than what their mother tells them. But what they're going to remember is that you spent time with them. And so, in addition to providing financially, whatever that support order is, you got to put time in with your kids. And if your story is she won't let me see my kids, go through the channels that you have to go through in order to have visitation rights with your kids or be able to visit your kids. Because there are channels that you can take, and I'm not saying they're fair, because a lot of times you have to pay money in order to go through to use these tools that they have out here for you to use to be able to see your kids when you're dealing with a female that wants to use the child as a pawn. You have to go about it in the right way, in order to, but there are ways out there, there are tools out there that you can use to be able to do that. And it's about the kids. You had your time before you had those kids. When two people lay down and they decide, and a child is born as a result of that, it becomes about the child at that point. What can you do to, raise this child in a healthy environment so that they can thrive when they become adults and do the same thing over again?
That's a lot. Is one of the possible channels, is that possibly could they call to your office to ask certain questions, or how does that work?
Well, yeah, they can call child support and ask questions about, child support and the order. All I can say is pay attention to what's going on. If they tell you to come and get GT tested, you go down and you get tested, to make sure that, the child in question is your child. And if that is your child, that answers the question right there. It's your responsibility to help take care of the child. Just as it is the female's responsibility, it's your responsibility too. Even though you may not be sleeping in that household, it might be somebody else in there. But whatever you do, just know or put yourself in the mindset that this is going toward my daughter. This is going toward my son. Get over that notion that she's sleeping with another one and my baby is up under all that. I ain't giving her nothing. I won't even work. Come out of that mindset, because that's just not the proper way to think, to look at it. Just know that you might get yourself together. You might find a nice young lady. She got kids. She's not going to want you if you don't accept the whole package. And how can you accept her package and you won't accept the one you got out there? So just know, when you produce a child, your life becomes dedicated to that child until such time as that child can thrive for themselves.
Right. Well, that's some valuable information. I hope our listeners, who needed to hear it, I hope they heard it. But this is definitely, Go ahead.
I do too, Brandon. I do too.
And I just want to tell you, it's been a pleasure to have you on here. I think it was much needed. And I know there's been a lot of times that, some of my choices, it's to make you question yourself. You even said it, throughout the interview. But like I once told you, and I'm going to tell you here today, you did all you could. You taught me right from wrong, but it's like when you step outside, it's too many other forces that was against you. And I hate it, but they won. But like it's one of your favorite songs was that Tupac Dear Mama, right?
Correct.
And he say in that song, he say, there's no way I can pay you back, but my plan is to, show you that I understand. And so, I'm striving to be better every day, and I'm going to do that. That's one thing that I'm going to do for you. And, to our listeners, I just want to say, like you heard her say, throughout, when I was playing basketball, she never missed a game. But for real, what she didn't tell you, she never missed nothing. You know what I mean? Whether it was 10,000 in a crowd or just two people in the courtroom with me, me and her against, when I was faced up against, she was there. And so, I appreciate you, and, I love you with all my heart. And, I just want to tell you that.
Well, I appreciate that, Brandon. You know I love you. I love you with all my heart. And, I'm going to continue to be your mom, and you're going to get through this, and you're going to put this behind you. You're going to be a model for a lot of these other young guys coming along. Just continue to do what's right. And right will follow you. I always told you, the worst you can get from a 9-to-5 job is a paycheck. Right? Don't I always say that?
Yeah, you definitely did.
The worst you can get is a paycheck. So you got to do it. You just got to do it right. And I think, I'm not saying that once you come home, it's going to be easy. It's going to be difficult. But if you hang in there and just, press on doing the right thing, there's nothing that can follow you but right. And we've had our times, as you as my son and me as your mother, but when I set it all aside, you still my child. I love you, and I'm going to support you as long as you're doing what's right. Okay?
Okay. Well, to our listeners, this is another episode of them Streetz podcast, which is the Underworld. And I will say, it's no love like a mother's love. So until the next time, we'll see you.
Thank you for using GTL.
Lucas, please step back inside. Please step inside, please. Respectfully, please step inside. Thank you. Step inside.